and we welcome you on another session on reachthearete Academy. So today is very special session because today we are going to talk about yet another very important component of your preparation, that is optional. And if you have seen, if you have observed, if you are following our channel, then you must have observed that day before yesterday we conducted a session on sociology optional, and today we are going to conduct this session on PSIR optional. These are some of the famous popular optionals among aspirants community in the field of UPSC. And why we are conducting these sessions now is because this is the time where you can excel. This is the time where you can take the lead in your preparation, right? Because after prelims, the chances or the time for your preparation, the time for revision will be very less. So that's why we are organizing these sessions by the experts, the toppers, the rank holders who have secured very high marks in their respective optional, so that you will get the best of the guidance in this field. Okay, so today we are going to have this PSIR session by Siddhesh Sir, and to tell you about Siddhesh Sir is there in this field from many years, and he has been guiding students from many years. He himself has given UPSC attempts and he has scored 285, he has scored 350. So today's session will be interesting, and in future his guidance will be very interesting to learn upon that, how to score high as 285 and how to score highest in the optional, that is 315. So this is this would be the defining guidance and learning from him. So make use of his mentorship. You can ask the doubts at the end of the session. We will have a doubt session so that you can ask in the last 10 minutes. You can post your doubts, you can unmute and ask. So briefly, I would like to introduce about Siddhesh Sir. So Siddhesh Sir has done his graduation in political science from Allahabad University, and Allahabad University आपको पता ही है, you know about the nature, the quality of education at Allahabad University, and there also he was one of the topper. He was in fact topper of his department, political science. Thereafter, he started his journey of UPSC preparation, and I have been closely associated with him, so I know his quality. I have observed him in those days when he secured the highest marks on PSIR. तो किस तरीके की मेहनत और किस तरीके का कमांड है, that is impeccable. ठीक है? While pursuing his preparation, when he was giving attempts, he parallelly finished his masters from IGNOU, and after his UPSC preparation days, he was also assistant professor at Akal University, and nowadays he is full-fledged guiding the UPSC aspirants. Many of his students are there in service as well, and they are appearing for interview also. So make best use of his guidance. And today, Siddhesh Sir will be talking about the very famous aspect of PSIR optional, that why PSIR optional remains elusive. और बहुत सारे interesting component को discuss करेंगे. So now I invite Siddhesh Sir to take the charge of this session so that he will guide you. जो भी doubts हैं, last में आप लोग doubts पूछ सकते हैं. Sir, if you are there, you can join us.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening. Yes, we have Siddhesh Sir here. And Siddhesh Sir, we welcome you on our platform, reachthearete Academy. And I was telling students that now you will be there to guide them, to mentor them, now and after prelims also. So don't worry, sir is there. जो भी doubts होंगे आप लोग कभी भी पूछ सकते हैं. पहले आज के session का हम उनसे mentorship लेते हैं, आज के session को समझते हैं, so that how you can maximize these 2 months with respect to the PSIR optional. Siddhesh Sir, we welcome you, and now the floor is open for you, and we hand it over to you. Okay, we welcome you again on the platform.
Thank you, Himanshu sir, and thank you for your kind words. I hope my voice is audible. Good evening, everyone. So this is the first session that I am taking on the behalf of reachthearete Academy. The session is about PSIR optional, and why PSIR is, I'll discuss why it is an easy optional also, and why it is one of the toughest option also. So we will be discussing different aspects of PSIR. So without wasting any time, I will start by, so I have prepared a few pointers. So one by one, I will discuss these pointers, and it will help you in your preparation in a very different way. So in the starting, briefly, I will discuss about PSIR optional, but I know most of you know about what PSIR, what political science optional is. Okay, so the optional consists of two parts. First is political science, and second is international relations. And the papers all similarly divided into two parts. So the first part is about the political science aspect of the subject, and the second part is of the international aspect of the subject. And even within that, it is divided into theoretical part, practical part, theoretical part, and practical part. So this is how briefly the syllabus of UPSC has been designed. Okay, why I'm discussing you this thing is because if you will understand the design of paper, why they have made paper in such a way, so it will be easier for you to understand that what are the inherent demands of the different aspects of those paper and how to fulfill those demands. Okay, so at first I will talk about PSIR. Okay, so political science has two papers. So first is 1A, paper 1A. So 1A is your political theory, complete political theory. Now this aspect of paper, you can divide it into three parts. Okay, first is your political theory. So we know in this we talk about what is political science, what is behavioralism, what is post behavioralism, what is equality, what is democracy, what is liberty. Different kind of ideologies are also part of this. So socialism, Marxism, Gandhism, feminism. So these are the topics that we study in political theory aspect. Second part is Western political thinkers, and third part is Indian political thinkers. Now this, all these 3 points alone makes your 40 to 45% of the subject matter. So your whole political science, 40 to 45% of that part, of that political science part, is covered from these, from just 1A itself. Okay, now in this Western political thought and Indian political thought is most confusing. Why it is most confusing is because you have to give equal amount of time for these two, the amount of time you will give this two alone. For example, इससे अगर 100 नंबर के क्वेश्चन आ रहे हैं, I'm just giving you an example, हो सकता है इससे 20 नंबर के आए, इससे 20 नंबर के आए, but still you will have to give equal time to these two topics and also to this topic. ठीक है, तो इससे प्रॉब्लम क्या होता है कि whenever we read about Western political thought, and see, Indian political thought is comparatively lesser because the people that we study in Indian political thought, whether it was Gandhi or M.N. Roy or Sir Syed Ahmad Khan, so they were not especially political thinkers. So there are some of their ideas that we study, but those ideas have not been discussed in such a depth that we'll have to give a lot of time to those ideas. Okay. However, Western political thought, obviously you will have to give a lot of time. If we are reading Plato, obviously when you are reading Plato, we just have to focus on the political because Plato was a philosopher, but Plato was also a political philosopher. So we will be focusing on the political aspects of Plato. Okay, that what were his political theories. So like for example, his idea of philosopher king, now that is a political idea that we have to focus. His idea of education is not that much of a political theory. Okay, it it is not that much important when we study Plato that we have to focus on his idea of education, but we have to focus on his idea of philosopher king or his idea of state, like his ideal state. Okay, so in political theory we have to give a decent amount of time to Western political thought, but if we can manage this aspect of the exam, then it is very easy to manage the whole uh, uh, section of political science. So this section of political science, it is very easy to manage the other parts of this exam, of this paper. Okay, similarly 1B, so 1B is similarly Indian political system, so it basically talks about everything which is happening. So the constitutional system, so you have to understand the basics of constitution, how the constitution runs. So you should have a good idea of what our constitution is. Obviously we have to read books on that. Similarly, we have to also know about the practical aspects of 1B, like the different things that is happening in our country, in our society. Okay, So one by one, I will discuss that how can we increase the score on those things. I'm just discussing about the basics right now. Okay. The second aspect is 2A and 2B. So 2A is your international relations, but basically theories. This remains the most tough part for candidates because it is very tough to crack that what you have to study, what we do not have to study. कुछ part जो है, some parts of this paper of 2A is very easy. For example, if you're reading about theories like realism, so it is very, if there is a question on realism, you can directly answer it. Similarly, system theory, very easy. But if they're asking about some very tough questions, for example, there was a question on data localization. Now, a lot of countries today are focusing on data localization. So you should know about data politics. What is the data politics that is happening and why countries? Because now you can see in Russia-Ukraine war also, whenever the time comes, the Western democratic countries, they have, because they have very powerful MNCs, so they can control your economy, they can control your data. So it is better if we can secure our data within the boundary of our own country. So you have to understand that kind of that kind of understanding you should have if you want to answer good if you want to write good answers on this part. Because when I check copies, I have checked copies like this year when I was checking mains copies. So this is the aspect where a lot of students find themselves in a very tough position. They write very mediocre answers, and that's why it happens also. Like usually people who score marks, so it is usually in second paper only they score very less marks. Okay. And the final part is 2B, so it is your international relations. What is happening in this world is India and international relations, and in general international organizations like, for example, ASEAN or BRICS, or what is happening. So if you're reading newspaper, you will be able to write fairly good points, not very good but fairly good points. I will discuss one by one how can we increase the score on each of these topics. Okay. Now, before we start the session, I want to discuss first thing that this session is not about the basics of PSIR. I am assuming कि आप लोग को एक basic of PSIR तो पता है. So whatever things that I will be discussing will be about the things that you will add on in your preparation and you will get good marks. Okay. So just second theme that I have decided is that is that why PSIR remains elusive. Now, what does that mean is that suppose, and it is not just suppose, 80 to 90% of the candidates who will give PSIR will, if they're serious candidates, they will get marks in between 230 to 240. Very few students will get 270 plus, and exceptional students will get 300 plus. Okay, this is the general trend. This is the same trend that has been there in 2014. This is there in 2021. So people, students discuss that competition has changed, this thing and that thing has changed. Nothing has changed. It remains the same. The paper of 2016 for 2016 candidates was same what the paper for 2021 will be for 2021 candidates. It is very easy when we look at past and say that, oh, earlier papers were easy, now they are very tough. It is not like that. Competition was same. It will remain same. If competition wouldn't have been same, or अगर competition का base जो है, it would have increased every year, तो जो हमारी cut off होती है prelims की, it would have been 150 plus. But that is not happening because that never happens. Competition remains the same. Now, why do majority of the students are stuck in this position? And even attempts after attempts, in one attempt they will get 241, in second they will get 232, in next they will get 216. In this I'm talking about serious candidate. Non-serious candidate will be in 160, 170, 180. So serious, even the sincere candidates will be stuck in this zone, and that will either hinder their interview call, or even if they get interview call, they will not get service. Or even if they have performed exceptionally in GS, they will get service, but they will get service like in the bottom of the exam, of the exam pyramid. Okay. So most of the students are stuck in this range. What is the reason? this year, when I was working in a mains test series, so there were around 30 students under me. So I was checking their copies regularly, and one thing I found was that 90% of the candidates, the mistakes, you should write it in your if you're writing it in somewhere down, you should write it, because that is the crux of my experience, is that they do not answer the soul of the question. Whenever a question has been put, there is a soul behind that question. There is an idea behind that question, that there was a reason that I'm asking this question from you. There was some purpose for which I have asked this question from you. Now you are missing that soul. For example, if I'm talking about, say, environment, and why the countries, like why our environmental policies or international organizations, they always fail on their deadlines. Whatever deadline they make, they always fail on that. If there is a question related to that, so the soul of the question is, you do not have to talk about climate change, you do not have to talk about what are the problems that climate change will bring. The soul of the question is that why countries are not in same page when it comes to environmental policies. Why are they are not in the same page when it comes to the environmental or green politics? Why there are different views? Why America, US, and India, or suppose say one European country, for example, Germany. Okay, so why do these three continental countries, these three countries of different continent, look at the environmental problems from very different perspective? Why is that? So you have to talk about the politics behind this thing. Why the level of development that is there in India, in Germany, and in US, that decides the politics, the domestic politics of the country, that decides, because a lot of strong industries are there in US, MNCs. So obviously, the government, the US government, always keeps an eye on the interest of the MNCs. So obviously, they will always be much more against the stringent norms. They will always push India and China for the they should also be included in the stronger measures in environment. Okay, so that is the soul of the question that has been asked. Okay, I will take one more question on that. So I'll just clear it. Say, suppose there is a question on judicial overreach. Okay, now this is always in news. This will always be in news. Judicial overreach. Even now, even today, this was in news. Okay, so suppose there is a question on judicial overreach. Now, the first thing that will come in students' mind is what they have read, not what they have understood. So they will start writing facts. They will start writing whatever they have read, and they will just start writing those things. So those are very similar things that you will find in all answers. So next things that I will discuss will be the problem of common answers. In that, I will discuss what are the problems that I see. Now, what is judicial overreach? Now, you will have to understand that our system, which was started by Locke, John Locke, who talked about democratic form of government, and then separation of power, the concept of separation of power was emerged by the different thinkers. So obviously our country has been divided into three parts: legislative, executive, and judiciary. There is a complete separation of power. Now, you should understand the idea behind separation of power, that why there is a separation of power, what is the need that there should be three branches of government. When you know these things, because it will not just that it will reduce the power centralization, but also it will increase the specialization of different sections. So for example, if someone is making law, they will specialize in making law. Someone is in executive, they will specialize in executing the laws. If someone is in judiciary, they will specialize in jurisprudence and law. Okay, so judicial overreach is not just a problem of institutional, like Supreme Court wants to monopolize the power, but it is also about that that the judiciary or the Supreme Court is not specialized in the problems that the administration faces in the day-to-day administration. For example, it is very easy for Supreme Court to say that you should distribute all the PDS food. Like if there is a PDS food which is food grain which is rotting in some place, so it is very easy for Supreme Court to say that you should distribute that food grain. But if you are a district collector or if you are an SDM, you know what are the problems, what are the difficulties that an administration will face if they will try to distribute those food grains. Those are the things that are not understood by judges. So that is the thing you will have to write in your answer, that you understand that why judicial overreach is not good. Supreme Court does not have the specialization to understand a lot of points. There were a lot of exams also that were cancelled by Supreme Court when there was no criminality involved in those exams. So you can cancel an exam if there is some element of criminality, okay? But you cannot cancel an exam just because paper was tough or just because there was some administrative problems that happened in some centers. So you cannot just hold or cancel the exam. So that's why when you talk about judicial overreach, do not just start thinking about, okay, this justice has said this, so I will write this. This justice has said this, so I will write this. No, you will have to understand the soul of the question. So always when you read a question, make it a habit, read it 2 to 3 times first. ठीक है, 2 से 3 बार आप इसको पढ़ो. उसके बाद try to understand that what is the main idea that this question is asking. Crystallize that idea. और उस वो जो आइडिया जो क्रिस्टल फॉर्म में आपने आइडिया लिखा है ना, वीव योर आंसर अराउंड दैट आइडिया. In my first attempt, when I gave mains for the first time, I scored 215 marks in PSIR. After that, I scored 265, 315, and 285. So after that, my marks never reduced. The reason for that was that this is same with prelims also. You will see a lot of students, they never qualify prelims. No matter how much they study, they never qualify prelims. And there are a lot of students, like this year also, you will see a lot of students who will give interview this year and they will not qualify interview. They will not get their name in the final list, and they will prepare for prelims for 15 days and they will qualify. And there are a lot of students who are preparing for prelims for say last 3-4 years. Exclusively they are studying for prelims and still they will not be able to qualify. Now why is that? Because there is I will say there is a knack, yeah, there is a certain element in each paper, whether it is ethics or essay or optional or prelims. If you will catch it, if you will hold it, exam will become very easy for you, very easy. But if you cannot hold it, then you will never qualify the exam. And that's why this is where guidance helps. Because suppose I can help you in political science to understand this thing, this point. Okay, if you will hold on to this point, your marks will increase. Similarly, someone should guide you in ethics also, because suppose you get very good marks in political science, but you perform poorly in essay and ethics. What is the point? So the clearing, if you want to clear this exam, you will have to balance out, because that is what I lacked in my preparation. I was not able to balance my marks. So you have to balance your marks. So similarly, in political science, in optional, I will say the one sure shot way to increase, to boost your marks. If you are in 230, you will become 245 student. If you are a 245 student, you will become 260 student, just by following this, that read one question 2 to 3 times. Always read it 2 to 3 times. And second thing is always try to understand the soul behind the question. Like for example, I will give you one example. When I scored this mark, 265 marks, so there was one question on on the liberalism, on the positive liberalism, the ideas of positive liberalism. Okay, now I just read it quickly and I started writing about neoliberalism. So like Hayek and Nozick. So I started writing about neoliberalism and the policy of neoliberals. It was only when I had written 80% of the optional that I read the question again, and I understood that they were talking about the positive liberalism, which was given by John Stuart Mill and T.H. Green. They were not talking about the neoliberalism. And by that time, I had already written 80% of my answer. So obviously, somehow I managed to write 2-3 paragraphs on positive liberalism. But by that time, it was too late. So maybe these 265 would have been 269, something like that. Okay. So that is one thing. Read the question 2 to 3 times. First thing. Second, when you will read it 2 to 3 times, you will understand the idea, the soul of that question. Okay, this is what the question maker wants to know. This is what he expects I should know. Okay. suppose there is a question on I'll take a very general question कि India China border relations, ठीक है, border relation पे अगर कोई question है तो first of all the question is specifically on border, so we do not have to, we can add one dimension on economy of like economy is also one factor in India China border, but we'll have to mainly focus on why there is a problem between India China border. So the problem of border, it was not in medieval history. If you will read medieval history, most of the invasions came from Arab, Turkish invasions, and then Persia. It was not from China. So when in medieval times, when it was the time of expansion, there was no such war was happening for India or China, or there was no expansion from the side of China. So why suddenly there is a border issue of India and China right now? Because that time there were frontiers, there were no boundaries. So slowly the influence of one kingdom will fade, and the influence of another kingdom will start. Now we had concrete boundaries. Now those boundaries are not defined. So China has different boundaries, we have different set of boundaries. So that is the first reason why problem arises, because we have a different view of the border, they have the different view of border. So first reason for India China border is because we have different view of borders, but that does not stop there. Second is the vision, the idea. India has never been an invading country, India has never invaded any country. China was also same, but after communist government came into power, obviously they want to expand the influence of China. So they want to expand the territory of China. So the second point you can write it, it is not just that border issues has not been resolved, but also because of the global vision that India and China shares, which is completely different. China wants to dominate the world, India wants to guide the world. The thing that we talk about Vishwaguru. So second point is about the global vision of the leaders or of the institutions. So Chinese institutions, they are very different. Indian institutions, they are very different. Then third point you can talk about geostrategic, that it is in the interest of China that it should have unresolved border with its neighbors. It is in the interest of China. Why? Because if you are in a constant state of war, then you can, because Chinese people, the population of China, they are not very happy with the present government. Obviously, there is always a fear. Dictatorship always fears that there will be some kind of revolution. So it is always in interest of China to keep simmering the border issue. Okay, and obviously India is it is not just India. With every other country, there is some problem that China has, but India is the major country with which it has a lot of border issues. So you have to, so this is where layered answer come into being. So you are discussing different kind of layers over which India China issues evolves. So that is the soul of question. You do not just have to discuss about okay, Galwan incident ho gaya, there was some skirmishes between India and China, then some scholar has said this, some scholar has said that, and then you will end the answer. Now it becomes very artificial answer. But if you have understood if you have got a very good context of why this is happening, then you will write those answers which will be very different from the 90% of the answers that I read. It will be very different from the 90% of the answers that I read. And this is how one can differentiate between how a normal like aspirant kind of answer and someone who is genuinely interested in international relations kind of answer. And remember this thing, I have checked a lot of, seen a lot of things, so I have like gained some examiner perspective. Like when you are checking, suppose 13th copy of the day, so what will be the things that will differentiate it from the rest of the 12 copies that I have checked? So this is one thing I have, like if you truly love international relations, then only you will be able to write very good answers. But if you will just treat it as an exam, so that artificiality will look there. Same thing happens with ethics also. If you have truly, and then you need courage also, because if you want to write some different answers, you need a certain kind of courage to write those answers. But it pays off if you have that courage to write something offbeat. Not like, do not write something controversial, but I'm saying write something offbeat, then it always pays on the end of the exam. Okay. So the first reason that I discussed, that why students and that is the prime reason that why they score less, is because they miss the soul of the question. They do not understand that what the question was about and what was expected in that question, like what you should have written in that question. So that is the first problem that they face. The second reason is the inconsistency. Now, what is inconsistency? One student is very good in 1A or 1B. So they will score, suppose, 130, but they are very bad in paper 2 and they will score 90 or 100. Now, it is always better. It is always, I will say, it is the best thing that you can do is that always score above average in all paper instead of just performing excellent in one paper and performing very like mediocre in the rest of the papers. So I always had, whenever I scored marks, it was like almost equal. So my paper 1 and paper 2 both were in the equal ground. It was not like in one paper I was scoring very highly, in second paper I was scoring very poorly. And this is where most of the students, they fail. 90%. They cannot manage. Either they will score 143 in paper 2 and 90 in paper 1. Again, same issue. So you have to understand that each paper and each section has a different kind of demands, and you will have to fulfill that demand. So section 1A requires very different kind of answer writing skill than suppose section 2A. This section requires very different kind of way, the way you should write answer, and this requires very different kind of way you should write answers. So you need to develop skills for each paper, for each subtopics, and how you will write paper. So your 1B, you should develop the skill of writing answers in 1B. You should develop the skills of answer writing in 1A, 2A, 2B, and each requires different skill. It is not just that you are practicing or you are studying everything, so you will score good in one paper, and then if you're not doing anything, you will score well because you have studied and you have done hard work. Or suppose you have given all the tests of paper 1, but you have not given a single test of paper 2, but you believe that because you have given 5 tests, you will perform good in examination. So that will not happen. You will have to balance out your paper. You suppose this also happens that a lot of students, they spend a lot of time in 1A. They will spend their 60% of time in 1A, 30% of time, suppose not 30, but suppose 20% of time in this, and then the rest of the 20% time in 1B or paper second. Now, how can you score when you are giving majority of your time in just political theory or Western political thoughts? You are doing PhD in Aristotle, you are doing PhD in John Stuart Mill, and there is a probability that maybe not a single question will be asked from Aristotle that year, because there are so many Western political thinkers that they have to cover. But you are not giving equal time to, say, environmental aspect of international relations, from which there is a high probability that there is one question that will be asked, or there is a high probability that you can use it in some example for some other question that you are answering. So you will have to give equal respect to each paper. You'll have to give equal time to each paper. It should not happen, because the biggest thing that even I faced was, and I'm just looking for a solution in which I'll make some very quick notes of Western political thoughts, which covers all the questions that has been asked in past. So if you can quickly finish Western political thought, then you can give a lot of time to paper 1, paper 2 equally. Okay. So but you'll have to manage the time. You will have to give equal time to both papers. So these are the two major problems that I have seen, and it is not just about studies. That's what I'm saying. Serious candidates, okay, because a lot of non-serious candidates also clear prelims every year, because they are selecting around 13,000-14,000 students. So not everyone will be sincere candidate, but I'm talking about the majority of the students. Okay, so if you are a serious candidate, then you should focus on two things. First, answer the soul of the question. Okay, understand what has been asked, read 2-3 times the question that has been asked, and then write your answers. And second thing is balance, that all the papers of your papers of your optional should be balanced. It should not be there ki always make sure ki you are scoring equally in both your optionals. Whenever you are giving test, it should not be there ki in one paper you are scoring very high, in another paper you are scoring very poorly, because it will hurt you like anything in the final examination. Even if you will score very high in one paper, there are chances that you will not be able to qualify this exam. And even if you have scored above average good marks in all the papers, there is a very high chance that you will qualify this exam. Okay, you will have to perform in 2 to 3 papers of 9 papers, you will have to perform exceptionally well. Okay, but apart from that, if you are above average also, very good also, then only also you can clear the exam. So that was the first topic that I wanted to discuss, that why political science remains elusive and why 90% of the student will remain stuck. Even if they will give 6 mains, then also they will remain in 230 marks wala window. They will never cross that window. So that is one reason, that is the two major reasons that I have discussed. Okay. Now the second important practical point that I will like to discuss is 95% of PSIR candidates, of political science candidate, will read the same notes, same X notes. Now, how is it possible that if all of you are reading the same notes, how will you compete with each other? Tell me, how can you compete with each another when you are reading the same notes? Because then you will write the same answers. If I have asked a question on M.N. Roy, no one will quote any other scholar apart from Sudipto Kaviraj, and same quotes, nothing extra. They will not even add a single extra line in their answers. Now, why is it? Tell me, why is it possible that if you're reading same notes, if you're reading same answers, why will I give you exceptional answers? Why will I not give you exceptional marks? Why should I give you exceptional marks? So that is the second problem, that common answers. Whenever I check copies, I know, after checking 2-3 copies, I know what will be the next copy, how they will start, what scholars they will quote, what examples they will give. And in this thing, whenever a student gives different example, whenever a student gives different kind of argument, they get disproportionately high marks. They get very high marks. So if you're writing the same introduction, if you're writing the same conclusion, if you're quoting the same scholars, if you're giving the same examples, how will your answer be different from other candidates? And why will you get different marks from other candidates? In this context, what is in your hands? See, scholars, obviously you cannot just give birth to different kind of scholars, because there are very limited scholars, like the scholars of authorities which you can quote. So you cannot just build up another scholar just for the sake of quoting. Okay, however, you can always prepare a list of examples, and these list of examples is always lacking in paper 1A. If you're talking about liberalism, talk about some policies of liberalism that has been followed today by US or Europe or India. If the idea of John Locke, has it been implemented somewhere, or is it being used somewhere in the present polity? Why are you not using these examples? Why just the theoretical aspect? Obviously in paper 1A you have to have a theoretical depth, but why are you not using some examples of this? Democracy, representative democracy, different kind of democracies that we have, participatory democracy. Now every year there is a democracy index. Read what are the important points that they are speaking about it, and why don't you add those things in these answers? Why is it just have to be from notes, nothing else? So that is the second thing I want to say, because 95%, if not 100%, I'm not saying 100%, because it is not correct to say 100%. So I'm saying 95% of all of us read the same notes and we write the same answer. So in this way, we will never score different marks. It is here that students who do different things, that they get extra marks. Now, what can you do? I'll give you some examples paper wise. Okay, so I'll just clear it. So for paper 1A, what can you do? See, if you're reading notes, that is good enough. That is your base form. But apart from notes, read some good book. If one book I will recommend, because see, this is not some book list kind of thing I want to make, but if one book I will recommend for political theory, that is O.P. Gauba. It has ample amount of scholars that has been quoted, and ample examples have been provided in this book. I know a lot of students know about O.P. Gauba, but they never read it. So at least read all the relevant chapters, then look at the previous year question of UPSC, and there has been some questions which are not in part of your syllabus, but they have been asked in exams. So use that part of that part also. Okay. Just a second. I'll just share it again. Okay. So read O.P. Gauba, read all the relevant chapters, then pick up all the important previous year questions that has been asked, and then also cover those topics which is not in the part of our syllabus. For Western political thought, I will recommend IGNOU. IGNOU notes, they are very good, especially for Indian political thoughts also, especially for Indian political thoughts, but for Western political thoughts also. Now, to reduce time that you're spending on Western political thoughts, make a list of things that you will be reading for each philosopher. Do not just read all philosopher in totality. Read it once to understand the context in which those philosophies developed, but you do not have to repeatedly read everything about the philosopher, because it is very difficult to manage things. So suppose there are 5 ideas of Plato's that has been asked repeatedly in exams. So prepare everything related to those 5 ideas. It will save your time. So these are the things that you should do for your paper 1A. For 1B, newspaper, nothing can beat newspaper. Okay. Apart from that, read Yojana. There are some Yojanas which are completely based on Indian Constitution, and there are a lot of Yojanas where there are different articles on local self-government, on social movements. So, and those have been written by the scholars that you can directly quote in your answers. So it is not just that you are writing the examples or the ideas that has been written in Yojana, but you can directly quote the authors themselves. Okay, so that is the second book that you should read. It is magazine actually. So newspaper and Yojana, just these 2 things apart from your basic notes will definitely add value to your answers. Okay, but if you're just sticking to your notes and you're not adding any value, there is no point. 2A, see, personally what I read and I have loved that book, if you have time, read it. That is Baelish and Smith. No point, there is no point of reading those notes again and again if they are not adding value to your answers. This is one of the most beautiful book that I've ever read on international relations. Andrew Haywood is also good. I've read Andrew Haywood also, but Baelish and Smith is the one that I've found very engaging, and it has a lot of examples. They have given. They have quoted a lot of scholars which are usually not used by political science students of UPSC. So just reading this book, like read its chapter on environment. You do not have to read anything else apart from obviously newspaper. So their chapter on environment is in very, like theoretically also it is very in depth, and then from the practical side also it is very in depth. They have discussed a lot of issues that environmental or green politics faces. Okay. Apart from this, obviously newspaper. See, newspaper, I always say, even for the prelim students, I always say, for UPSC students in general, I'm saying that if you're not reading newspaper, then there are very low chances that you will qualify this exam. If you're not consistent in newspaper, it is very difficult for you to qualify this exam. Newspaper is something that you should never skip. Never ever skip, either for prelims or for mains or for interview, because the information that you will get in newspaper will always something that you can use somewhere in your exam, and those small information matters. When each marks matters, then those small information really matters. Okay. For 2B, simple, First, read something like newspaper, follow a newspaper regularly. So that is the first thing that you should follow in your 2B. And apart from that, any one site in which regular newspapers are given. But then the problem with international relations is that every day there will be 5 articles. Every day there will be 10 articles on international relations. So obviously you cannot follow all the articles. So in this context, what you can do, the simple thing that you can do is just follow the things that are a part of our syllabus. You will have to follow those things. Yes, recording will be put in YouTube. I think in Himanshu sir will tell you about that, but in within 2 to 3 days they will put it in YouTube, so you can rewatch it. So apart from newspaper, what I'm saying is that if you'll follow any, I'm not taking site right now because I do not want to make this a book list kind of video. So very consciously, I'm not naming sites. So whichever site you will follow, so they will always put 5 to 10 articles per day. So in this context, you will have to, so here what helps? How can you chalk out? Just like prelims, read and reread all the previous year questions. The more you will read about the previous year question, the more you will understand the kind of questions that UPSC is asking, and just pick up those articles which are important from our point of view. And if you have read, suppose 5 articles for one topic, so you do not have to read more articles. For example, India Israel. Now if you have read 5 articles on India Israel, now you do not have to again read. If suppose today there is another example, suppose article on India Israel agricultural relations, so just pick up 1 or 2 point of the examples that has been added on agricultural relations, but then again you do not have to read the whole article. Okay, so that is the one base that you can form. So I'm telling you this thing because it is very easy for me to name 10 books. It is very easy for me to say ki, you read 10 books and then if you're not reading it is your mistake. But I know the problems that students face. There's a lot of stress of prelims also, lot of stress of mains. If you're in middle of prelims and mains, then you have to prepare your GS also, you have to give your test also. So these are the some of the minimal sources. I'm saying that it will not take a lot of time also, but it will add a lot of value in your answers. It will definitely add, it will differentiate your answer from the 100th copy that I'm checking. If I've checked 99 copies and if you're writing one answer, I know you have read those notes, but it also shows that you have put effort and you have added some new points in your answer. Okay, so that is the second thing that I wanted to discuss, that the problem of common answers can be reading not so common materials. One of my student, he's giving interview also this year, and when he will clear, I'll share you his mark sheet. I'm hoping, it is my view, and then it will, if it happens, it will align my view with the views of UPSC examiners also. But he will be the highest scorer in PSIR, and I'm not saying because he's my student, but because I saw his copies. The answers that he wrote at the start of the test series, they were very mediocre, but later on the answers that he was writing in international relations were exceptional. Like those, all the arguments that he gave, all the examples that he gave were not a single one from the notes. They were not from the notes. So like he said one thing, and even I will recommend that thing, the print, there is one site by Shekhar Gupta. So he's a very senior journalist. The print in which he has one like show which is called Cut the Clutter. So in Cut the Clutter, he always quotes a lot of scholars, a lot of books, and he gives very good examples, not just in Indian politics, but also in international relations. Now that Cut the Clutter is very, very engaging. It is not something you are just watching for the sake of watching because you are preparing for UPSC. You should watch Cut the Clutter. It is not like that. It is very engaging. It is very interesting. So just by watching those videos, he increased his marks. And students are reading so much of material. They are reading so much of notes and newspaper and everything, and just by giving half an hour to that Cut and Clutter, and then he added all the valuable points that he was giving, and then he started putting in his answers, and those answers were very different than all the answers that other students were writing. So this is how you will differentiate, because otherwise you will be doing the same thing. You have read the same notes, you scored poorly in mains, again you will read the notes, and then again you will score poorly in the mains. Okay, so just by adding some small points, you can massively increase your scores. Okay, So the last point, sorry, the second last thing that I want to discuss is, this is a smaller point. This happens a lot, especially in 2B, in paper of international relations. 90% of the answer will start with according to, according to, according to XYZ scholar. Now, if they have asked about India-China border relations, they are asking whether you have understood the that what India-China border relations are or not. They are not asking whether you have read a scholar who has said something about India border relations. What India-China border relations? What I'm trying to say is that your answer should be your original argument. Whether you're talking about liberalism, whether you're talking about equality, and especially in paper 2 in international relations, it is your understanding that they are testing. They are not testing the understanding of our foreign minister, because he very well understands what international relations is. So always, and this goes back to the point that I said about the soul of the question, because you want to quote the scholar, you will answer what you know, you will not answer what has been asked in exams, what has been asked in paper. There is a very high chance that you will score very good answer in political science without quoting a single scholar, and there is also a very high chance that you will score very poorly in political science even after quoting a number of scholars. And why is that? Again, because you're not answering what has been asked, but when you saw a question on India-China border relations, you started remembering which are the scholars that I have read on India-China border relations. And then you will frame your answer not according to the question, but according to the scholars that you have read. So do not overuse scholar. What I'm saying is, I'm not saying that do not use scholar, but your scholars should, they should support your argument. They should not be your main argument. Okay, if you are pro India Pakistan relations, like you believe that India and Pakistan should have a better relation, then you should give reasoning of your own with examples, with past experiences with Pakistan, that why India and Pakistan should have better relations. You do not have to directly quote the scholar. You will say, okay, because of these economic reasons, it makes sense that India and Pakistan should have a better relations. And as has been said by a scholar also, as it has been discussed by a scholar like XYZ also, that because India, because of this and this, India and Pakistan should have better relations. Or SARC, for example, there is a question on SARC. So you should understand why SARC was made, what was the reasoning behind SARC was. Do not just read it as an organization, but read it in a context like BRICS. Why BRICS was made? Why G7 has been made? Why G20 has been made? So whenever these organizations are made, there is a very, very strong reasoning behind making those organizations. And if they are not fulfilling those reasoning, then obviously they will be defunct. Biggest example being non-alignment movement. Okay. So understand the context in which those organizations or whatever it is has been made. Answer it according to your understanding. Use a lot of examples to justify what you're saying. So, like if I'm checking your answer, you are not a scholar. So if you say yes, I believe that India and Pakistan should have a better relations. Why should I trust you? So then you should add example, because if they are doing trade relations, suppose India will get a benefit of $1 billion or anything like that. I'm just giving hypothetical examples right now. Okay, so you have to give arguments, you have to use examples to justify those arguments, and then you have to use the scholars to show that even different scholars have same view with what I'm presenting, or if to show that there are scholars and that you're aware about the counter views also, like a lot of scholars have counter views also. Okay, so that is the second point. What happens is कि scholars के साथ क्या होता है, you start writing what you know and you do not write what has been asked in exams. There's a big difference between these two things, what you know and what has been asked in exam. And the biggest culprit for it is to quote scholars. Okay, the final point that I will be discussing right now in today's session will be what you should do for 2023. So now today is 10th January. Different candidates are in different level of preparation. Okay, some are very comfortable with prelims, so they can give, suppose, till 15th February or till March, like 1 March, they can give some time to their optional, 2 to 3 hours, and then they can prepare, and then rest of the time they can give for their prelims. Because I say for GS, if you have not completed your GS, it is very easy for you to finish your GS even after prelims, even after you have given prelims. But that is not the case with optional. You should have a thorough understanding of your optional before this thing, before your prelims starts. Okay, so for if you're comfortable, you should give around 2 to 3 hours to your optional. Your main focus should be, see, do not, if you have not studied anything, then do not make a point that you will study everything related to optional. That will never be possible. So suppose you make a target that I will cover 70% or 60% of my optional, and rest 40% I can cover after the examinations, depending on your comfort level, I'm saying. So this is you who will have to decide that how much time I can allot to your optional and how much time you can allot to your prelims. Obviously, reading optional always helps in prelims. In polity, a lot of philosophical questions are also being asked these days. And if you have read political science, it will be very easy for you to answer those philosophical questions. If you have not read political science, it will be very difficult for you to, like, there was one direct question on what are the commonality between Gandhism and Marxism. Obviously, both were against state. Both wanted a stateless society, obviously, but the vision of their state was different. Like for Marxism, it was for Marx, it was a communal kind of society in which everyone is taking care of everyone else. However, for Gandhi, it was a kind of local self-government kind of society in which there were self-sufficient villages. But that was the common point. Now, majority of student, 90% of the non-political science student will never be able to answer that thing because it is a very difficult question. But for a political science question, political science student, that is a very easy question. They can very score very highly in. They can very gain an edge of 2 marks in prelims just by one question. So this is where the benefit of optional comes. Every year there are 2 to 3 questions on international relations. Like there was one question on Levant region. What is the region in there? Now, if you're reading international relations, obviously you cannot miss what part of the word Levant is called. Okay, so there is always a benefit whenever you are reading about optional in your prelims. So it depends on your on your comfort level, because you are the best judge of the level of preparation that you have. We do not have idea in which section of the paper that you are comfortable with, but in general, if you are fairly comfortable, and even if you're giving 8 to 10 hours of your time on prelims, then also you should give at least 2 to 2.5 hours in your optional right now, because it will help you not just in your prelims also, but it will help you after your prelims also. Okay, so these were some of the major points that I wanted to discuss with you. And I think I have made my points clear, because this session was not about how to prepare for PSIR, but how to add value on your preparation of PSIR. So we have discussed different dimensions on these topics. So now, because this session is coming to an end, I would like to say the students that are online right now, so if you want to ask any question, either you can turn on your mic and you can ask those questions directly, or you can write in it in the chat box also, and then I will answer those questions. So we can start, and if you have any questions, we will take those questions. Otherwise, we will end the session. Okay, thank you if the lecture was helpful. So do you have any questions regarding political science? If you have, you can ask. You do not have to hesitate about this, because we are here to help you. So you can ask those questions, or otherwise we will end the session.
Hello, sir.
Yes, Karthik.
Sir, I wanted to ask, like, आपने कहा कि सब वही notes पढ़ रहे हैं.
जी.
तो सर, वैल्यू एडिशन के लिए जो आपने बुक्स बताया है, तो सर,
yes.
तो they will, मतलब जो अपना हाइब्रिड नोट्स बनेगा, टेकिंग सम इनिशियल टाइम ना, वो तो लेंगे ही.
Yes.
तो sir, we should put at least like 3 to 4 months of self investigations उन किताबों को पढ़ना and then
नहीं, इतना टाइम नहीं लगेगा। देखो, आप पॉइंट समझो ये चीज का कि आप वही चीज कर रहे हो। आप सपोज 6 घंटे ऑप्शनल को देते हो, मैं एग्जांपल लेता हूँ, प्रीलिम्स के बाद आप 6 घंटे ऑप्शनल को देते हो एंड स्टिल यू आर स्टक इन लो मार्क्स 230, और वहीं अगर आप 3-4 घंटे थोड़ा सा, मतलब जो अपने 6 घंटे आप दे रहे हो उस पे बजाय कि बार बार वो नोट्स रिवाइज करने के जो आप पढ़े हुए हो, आप कुछ वैल्यू एडिशन दे देते हो। आपको पूरा किक स्टार्ट नहीं करना है, जीरो से नहीं प्रिपरेशन स्टार्ट करनी है, आपको जीरो से नहीं आर्ग्यूमेंट्स बनाने हैं। जो आप एक्स्ट्रा बुक पढ़ रहे हो ना, इट इज अबाउट द वैल्यू दैट यू आर एडिंग। आपको केवल नई एग्जाम्पल्स, नए आर्ग्यूमेंट्स और नए स्कॉलर्स उठाने हैं, पूरा का पूरा। तो इट विल नॉट टेक मच टाइम। it may appear that it will take, like योजना वाला जो मैंने पार्ट आपको बताया, पिछले 3-4 साल की योजना और उनके इंपॉर्टेंट आर्टिकल्स अगर आप अच्छे से छाटोगे तो विद इन 3 days यू कैन फिनिश इट।
Okay sir. And sir,
यस कार्तिक, आपका माइक ऑफ हो गया फिर।
yes sir, जो like I want, how we can utilize the toppers copy? Should we go for that?
See, toppers copy na, first of all, see, even if they have cleared UPSC, just see what were their scores first of all. अगर उनके scores अच्छे थे ऑप्शनल में, देन आप अंडरस्टैंड करो कि वो क्या उन्होंने इंट्रोडक्शन लिखा, सेकंड पैराग्राफ कॉन्शियसली उन्होंने क्या लिखा था, व्हाट डिड दे राइट इन देयर सेकंड पैराग्राफ, थर्ड पैराग्राफ में क्या लिखा था, किस तरीके के एग्जांपल्स यूज किए थे। सो इन दैट कंटेक्स्ट यू कैन यूज टॉपर्स कॉपी, बट ऑलवेज सी फर्स्ट कि क्या स्कोर था टॉपर्स का।
Okay sir, thank you sir.
ठीक है। Sir, how to address or enrich polity topics like making salient features of constitution, local self-government in specific option answers, how to make it different from GS2. See, to first of all, to make it different from GS2, it is very easy. You have to quote scholars. You can use scholars and you can use some examples to differentiate it from GS2. You have to be more argumentative in comparison to more factual. जब आप, if you are writing answer for GS2, then obviously you will have to be a little more factual. But if you are writing answer for optional, obviously you have to give a little more arguments. Okay, so that is first thing. Second thing is how to enrich our polity topics. See, again, just go back to Yojana. There is one complete Yojana on Indian Constitution. They have discussed about salient feature of Constitution. They have discussed about local self-government. Read those articles. See the scholars that have written those articles, quote those scholars, and automatically your answers will be enriched. Just by reading this, your answers will be much better than other students' copy. Okay, so it is quite easy to score and add value if you're just following the right sources. So I think with this we can end the session. So Himanshu sir, are you there? Are you online?
Yes, I'm here only. I was constantly watching the value addition which you were adding in the PSIR optional with respect to the preparation. And indeed, I will say that this session was very much required, very much needed for all the serious aspirants who are trying to get that extra edge or the value addition in their preparation, be it of answer writing or for that matter, the advices which you have given on how to make your notes जो सब लोग नहीं पढ़ रहे हैं उससे अलग कैसे बनाना है. Otherwise, the popular names, the popular notes we are following, and we are getting trapped in that vicious cycle of getting low marks. So really thank you, Siddhesh Sir, for adding that value addition wala component and how to enrich the answers. I'm sure the students will get a lot of benefit from it. तो जो भी लोगों ने इस सेशन को सुना है, those who will be watching it in future, make use of this session. And Siddhesh Sir will be there. You can share your doubts with us on reachthearete@gmail.com. And whenever you want, after your prelims, you can meet Sir. You can discuss about your PSIR optional, about your strategy, everything. So feel free. Sir will be there at Arete Academy. He will be guiding all of you and make use of his the excellence जो उन्होंने achieve किया है वो ऐसे नहीं आता है. You must have got to know the way he was discussing. His graduation subject was political science, so it takes time to reach that excellence. वो एक level पे आने में time लगता है. तो दूसरों से सीखिए, अपने सीनियर से सीखिए, मेंटर से सीखिए, and make use of the best guidance which is available. So thank you once again, Siddhesh Sir. Thank you for your time, and I'm sure the students would reach out to us in case of their doubts, and to tell you, to share with you that some of them have shared the answers they have written on PSIR, their first answer in the PSIR, and I'm going to share it with you after the session. So please do comment on that. And thank you once again for joining us on the reachthearete Academy. And thank you everyone for joining us today on the session. We will sign up for the day, and we will come up with more sessions on PSIR like Sir has planned. We will come up with how to make use of the current affairs from the newspaper. PSIR में उसको कैसे use करना है, कोई PYQs पे discussion हम करेंगे. So like this, we have planned a series of initiatives, and many of you were inquiring about the courses कि सर क्या PSIR का कोई course आ रहा है. So we will wait after prelims. We will announce certain courses as well, which will help you in your preparation. Okay, so stay tuned and follow us on our Telegram website. आप लोग follow करिए, सारे updates मिलेंगे. So once again, thank you Siddhesh Sir, and we will meet in the future in future sessions. Okay, see you all. Bye bye.
Thank you, sir.